are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the College Loop Podcast, episode 191 of the College Loop Podcast. I'm Larck, on Twitter, and I'm here joined with Mr. Harrison Tarr. Tarr, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great, man. Good to be back. A wild, wacky baseball game last night as we're recording this show, and then obviously minutes before hitting record on this show, hearing some really, really big, exciting news. It's going to wind up being a headliner for this show, which is great. That Janai Boem obviously will be returning to the Tigers. Lots of good news today. And that's refreshing from where it feels like Auburn has been this spring. A lot of fun stuff to talk about. Auburn Softball getting canceled once again. Stop me if you've heard that before. We'll talk about that later. But all in all, really, really happy to be talking ball. And I've got to sneeze, so I'm going to mute myself.
All right. Well, let's get it started. The transfer portal for college football is back open for, I believe it's a month period. I don't understand.
It's long.
I don't understand the periods anymore when it comes to the transfer portal. It's back open. When it closes, to be determined. It's the way always changing those rules. Auburn has currently only lost 2 players as we're recording this to the portal.
It's April 16, which opened. It opened last night at midnight and ends on April 30.
Oh, so they shortened it because last year was like a month long. But yeah, so far Auburn has only lost Britton Williams, who was the most recent one. He was a class of 2023 guy, 3-star out of Opelika. Never really saw the field. I think only got on the field twice. Never recorded any stats. But he has officially entered the portal. And the other guy that we pretty much have known all along, don't even spend too much time on him, is J.D. Rem. The guy kind of broke the news earlier. He kind of departed from the team earlier on in spring. And now he is officially entered the portal as well. So Auburn's only lost 2 guys, and I believe they're going to be shopping in this portal cycle just as much as they shopped in the last one. But it is worth mentioning that we should give our predictions on who do we think Auburn might lose in this portal cycle. And I think we can it's easy to start off with the headliner here in Holden Gner.
Yeah, I'd be more surprised if Holden Gner were to stick it out for another year than if he weren't. If he were to opt into the transfer portal, I think it's actually in his best interest at this point. So that being said, I mean, there's also like Holden Gner's had plenty of like silver lining opportunities or like golden opportunities to leave the program and hasn't. So like he could be on this roster come fall. It really just depends on where he thinks he is, and that'll also be a telltale about where it looks like in terms of the pecking order and in the quarterback room situation. But Gner feels like a layup.
Yeah, especially a guy who has had multiple chances to battle out for the job. He had all spring last year to battle out with Robbie Ashford, had the fall battle out with Robbie and Peyton Thorne, and just could not beat Peyton Thorne again. And I believe he was also there earlier on. He lost to TJ Finley and Robbie Ashford as well. So just all kinds of wacky going on. But I just don't see a world where Holden Gner starts as an Auburn Tiger. I mean, there's always the argument that, maybe next year he'll be able to play. He'll be able to start before Walker White's era begins, or whoever Auburn signs in the next cycle. But I just don't see a world where Holden Gner stays another year of being a backup. I believe it's now his 3rd year.
Holden Gner is going to be like an awesome USF Bowl.
I think they're loaded. I think they have a pretty good quarterback right now. They were good last year.
I don't know. I'm just an FAU owl. Like he's going to be the next. This is just how this works out most of the time. This is going to be the guy that really never saw the field and then winds up having a nice little career elsewhere. And I wish him the best, but I don't think he's going to be an Auburn Tiger for much longer.
I think he should go to the American Conference. That way he can just kind of fill off a little trifecta of the southeast of G5 conferences that Auburn transfers go to and just have an outstanding year. Join Malik Willis in the CUSA, or I guess Liberty was independent then.
They were independent at that point.
But they came to the CUSA. But then TJ Finley went to the Sun Belt and Texas State. The Americans right there, and then of course we don't know who's going to be joining the Mountain West in a couple of years.
Well, TJ Finley, known Western Kentucky legend, but yes,
you're right. I forgot he's on his 4th school. It is time to start making transfers on the 3rd or plus school to go to the military academies. It's time. It's time. It's time to do that. But another guy I have on this list, we got two wide receivers. One of the one I'm going to start off with first. Words are hard. Is Koy Moore. Koy did not participate in the spring very much due to I think a lingering injury he had. He was not in the 8A game. I don't know the full details, so don't fully quote me on that. But Koy has had his highs and his lows, and it's. The lows just kept on coming. There was the muffed punt against Alabama in the Iron Bowl. There was that LSU game where he threw an interception and then gave up an interception. It's been a tug of war of emotions watching Koy Moore play, and I think he's a very talented wide receiver. Tar, I know you were very high on Koy Moore going into the season, and he has the talent that does that. There's a reason why he was formerly an LSU Tiger. But I just don't see a world where, and I'm going to say this a lot with these three guys because Auburn loaded up so much of these positions with the Cam Colemans of the world, with Perry Thompson and Malcolm Simmons coming in, with Bryce Kane already in here, with Robert Lewis, Jay Fair, Sam Jackson V, Camden Brown, who's looking like he's going to have a great year. There just doesn't seem to be enough passes to go around for Koy Moore.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I was just going to say there's not enough touches. And I think that goes for your next guy that you have mentioned on this list. I'm going to let you cook on the fourth one because I don't know if the last one's going to be a manifestation thing or a true belief thing. But your third talking point that you brought up on our rundown, Dylan, is Caleb Burton. And I think it's kind of copy-paste from what you said beforehand. It's not that I don't think Caleb Burton has the talent to play at the FBS level at the receiver position. It's just I don't think that it's at Auburn anymore. I think that Auburn's shifting their entire kind of perspective and outlook and culture around the wide receiver and skill position rooms for that matter, which is long overdue. But I just don't think there's enough touches. You've got too many guys with too much talent to keep the ball out of their hands. And I just don't think Caleb Burton and Koy Moore, to go back to our previous point, have that capacity. Just to be completely transparent and honest with you. You've got a young, exciting, or not young for sure, but a bunch of new faces that you're really, really excited to see how they can kind of plug themselves in. And there's obviously what a lot of us think a star in the making amongst that mix, if not two, maybe more.
If not four.
if not four. And I think
if not five. Don't.
Okay. Anywho, it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. I like your kind of assumption that it makes a lot of sense for Caleb Burton to enter the transfer portal. Wishing him the best.
Yeah, and it also seemed like sometimes Caleb Burton wasn't as fast as advertised on the field.
Correct.
There was definitely a lot of I think one just came to your mind where he caught the ball and it just looked like he just was not getting to the sideline quick enough. And also, like, these two guys, they're very talented, but they lack the size that Hugh Freeze looks for in wide receivers. You look at Perry Thompson and Cam Coleman. Both of those guys are 6'3", but Koy Moore, Caleb Burton. I believe Caleb Burton, I know for sure, is 5'11". I think Koy Moore is also probably 5'11". But on the shorter end, Hugh Freeze very into the outside, go up and get it, 50-50 balls.
Koy Moore, 6'1".
Okay.
Sorry, I was just looking.
He plays shorter than he looks.
He also, that's what they list him at.
Yeah, that's. I don't trust Auburn Athletics heights.
They would list me at 6 foot, so.
I'd be 6'4".
Yeah.
Hopefully. But yeah, last guy we have on this list is Wesley Steiner. I have never been high on Wesley Steiner. I'm not a professional hater, but it's just at the aspects of the game that you see from other players, you don't see that from Wesley Steiner. I think Steiner's been at Auburn for, I think, 4 years. If not more. I swear he's been here since the inauguration of the school. He has been here that long, and I don't think he's developed a single step. It just every time I watch him play, he looks lost on the field. He's never developed as a linebacker for the Tigers, and of course, I don't know whose fault that really is. I don't know if it's his fault, if it's the fact that he's had like 4 different linebackers coaches at this point. The game of football doesn't really come to him as quick as you would expect a veteran linebacker to be to get that. Auburn has had to go out and get transfers at the linebacker position in Dorian Mousey. You had to go get 3 linebackers in Joseph Phillips, who's going to be playing edge rusher mostly, DJ Barber, and, of course, DeMarcus Riddick. You're finding guys that Auburn is recruiting through the portal in high school that are pushing Steiner down the depth chart. Do I think he could get some attention in the G5 level? But as an Auburn/SEC linebacker, I just don't think the game is there for Steiner right now. And if he wants an opportunity to play, I feel like his best option is to transfer out.
Yeah, agreed. And that's going to kind of pivot over to Dylan. You pitched the concept of discussing what position groups Auburn should be shopping for, and I know this is going to sound a little contradictory to what you just said, but I think that linebacker room plugs in. I pulled up just for kicks and giggles, and just to refresh my memory here on that linebacker room. Obviously, going to be anchored down by Eugene Asante, and you've got DeMarcus Riddick, the true freshman, that another one of those star in the makings that Auburn thinks that they've really got something special there. I would agree. DJ Barber, also a freshman. Then you bring in Austin Keys, who's returning, obviously brings a lot of experience. We think he can do some special things there, and Dorian Mousey. But I think you're missing 1 or 2 guys there. I think that's a room that you have to talk about. You pair that with, I don't necessarily know that you need a boatload of DBs, but I think you probably need 1 or 2. Those are your smaller position groups of need. But I think that transitions nicely because, yes, you don't think that there's room for Wesley Steiner, but that does not mean that there's not room for another young man who can play at this level to come be a rotational piece. Eugene Asante is a phenomenal football player, but the last thing you need is for him to get beat up to the point where he's not ready for those games in October and November. That's the reality of things because, guys, just to be transparent, we talked about this time and time again. Look, your circle games are not going to be in the postseason. I mean, you want to go win your bowl game because, God, Auburn's do. But at the same time, you want to go compete with the best. And that is, I mean, still, whether or not however you feel about Kalen DeBoer, it's still going up against your biggest rival in Alabama. It'll still be against, the University of Georgia when you take on them in October. Making sure that you've got the rotational pieces that if something gets banged up, if an Austin Keys or if a DeMarcus Riddick is not developed to the point where you need to be, if an Austin Keys is banged up, you have to be able to get some guys in that room. And that's where I'm going to open this conversation for you, Dylan. I know there's a couple other talking points specifically on that defense that you wanted to talk about. Who and what are Auburn shopping for you in your mind in this second portal window?
I think you got to look forward from the linebackers to go to the defensive line. The linebacker room, I think you're going to be waiting to develop into the strong core, especially with the DBs. The DBs are all young and really talented. I think Hugh Freeze mentioned a lot of times that he's going to be relying on a lot of freshmen. And more, I think you mentioned more than he'd like to in terms of freshmen that are going to be playing on the field in year 2 in the Hugh Freeze era. And I think you're going to be looking at guys like Jalen Crawford and Amon Lane, who are going to be playing in the secondary and going even forward in that Laquan Robinson in the backfield. But the defensive line, Auburn lost a lot of good defensive linemen and the depth pieces. You're looking at Steven Sings, who transferred out. He's not found a place yet. Anis Sledge, who was transferred to Illinois. You have Steven Johnson, who – did I say it wrong?
You said Anis. It's NC Sledge.
NC. There we go. Steven Johnson, who transferred to McNeese State. And then you had Wilkie Denod, who would have been, I think, a freshman. Was he part of the Harston?
Yeah, he was.
Wilkie Denod, who transferred to Mississippi State. And then you had Britton Williams, who just transferred out when the portal opened up. So you lose a lot of good defensive linemen. You bring in a couple of good ones in Trill Carter and Gage Keys, but I think you're really missing some key parts of that depth behind Jason Jones, behind Trill Carter, behind Gage Keys, behind those guys, because you need to have a rotation of defensive linemen going in at every given time. You're not going to your defense tackle 5 might be going in with your starting defensive lineman at any given point in the game because the SEC is very tempo based. It's very get your guys out there quickly. We're trying to snap the ball, trying to run the next play. So you're looking at different defensive linemen to go through here. You're not going to get a home run in this portal cycle unless you're very lucky. That's kind of what the second portal cycle is. It's for guys who test the waters in the spring, didn't work out. Here we go. But you're never going to get that guy in the second window. And again, I guess unless you're very lucky. But Auburn needs at least 1 to 2 more I would say like one average one and one maybe like below average one, just to kind of fill up that room even more. But yeah, defensive lineman is like on top of the list of what I think Auburn should be going for right now.
I think that I'm just going to echo that sentiment. And you can never be too rich in the trenches. This is one of those opportunities you get. You don't need to go get a guy that's going to make plays, every single down, but a guy that can make plays when they're asked to go in, and that can go in and provide valuable depth and just hold down the fort for a couple snaps, depending on tempo and depending on schematics. I think that's tremendously valuable. Also want to take a look at that quarterback room. Guys, I'm not starting up the rumor mill that Auburn's going to go get its starter in the spring period. That's not what I'm saying. And the starter is Peyton Thorne. But what I am, and we discussed about this before the show kind of launched today, Dylan, that you mentioned that you want a brick wall or you want a metaphorical wall between Peyton Thorne and Hank Brown. And look, I get it. I'm in that camp. I think the most valuable piece, if you can grab a quarterback that just wants to come play ball in the SEC, wants to suit up in the SEC, and wants to kind of work toward like a GA route, going the graduate assistant route, and get into coaching, get a guy that can be a veteran locker room presence, and that if he needs to come hold down a couple snaps because Peyton Thorne gets banged up, so be it. That's kind of like a Cord Sandberg, actually, not a guy that's going to go out there and wow you, but like Cord was a valuable backup quarterback. I don't think people give him the flowers that he's due in that regard for being a leader in that locker room. Obviously, his situation different, coming in much older, being a 24-year-old freshman, 25-year-old freshman, whatever the case may be.
He was up there.
He played Major League Baseball or minor league baseball first, so I get it. There's no hate on my end, but getting a guy like a Cord Sandberg, someone that can come in and lead by example and kind of help coach up the future of your program in Walker White and Hank Brown in terms of depth pieces that are going to be within your program. And obviously, the guy that you expect to take the helm, and a guy that can influence Peyton Thorne to be a more mature football player, that can influence him to understand a game from a different perspective. I think that's how you win. I think that's how you come out of this. If you're going to get a quarterback, that's the situation. I'm not sitting here saying go get a guy that can start over Peyton Thorne. That is actually the inverse of what I'm saying. What I'm getting at here is find a guy that can contribute in ways beyond ball, that all pertain to ball, but contribute in ways that if you need him to come in and hand the ball off for a couple downs because you got to put some tape on your starter's ankle, so be it. This guy can handle that. He can dump off a screen pass. He can complete a little bit downfield and can put down good reps in practice. But more than anything, can influence the guys around him to take the right strides to get better. That's my offensive key.
And I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to like getting Sam Jackson back in the backfield, just to have just someone with veteran quarterback experience to go back there. Because, of course, we saw Hank Brown make a couple of throws in the bowl game when it didn't really matter anymore. And of course, the throws were good; they were very good throws. But in the SEC, let's say if Peyton Thorne, knock on wood, goes down against Georgia, do you want the guy with 1/4 of experience going in versus Georgia rather than have a guy who's played quarterback before throughout an entire season?
Yeah.
That's like where I'm coming from. Because I know there's going to be a lot of people who are like, oh, Auburn need a quarterback. Oh, they need to win over Peyton Thorne or whatever, whichever side they're really on. But it's not Walker White's time yet. And I don't believe Hayden Brown has developed to a point where he should be the guy right now.
Agree.
Or in the conversation. And, of course, I don't see a world where Auburn keeps Holden Gner in the quarterback room. And we just talked about that like not 5 minutes ago. Auburn needs at least one guy that can bridge the gap between, like, Peyton Thorne and, oh, crap. Like, that's where I'm looking at. Even if that's Sam Jackson, I'm fine with it. Even if it's Sam Jackson, I just need someone with quarterback experience to be right there with behind Peyton Thorne in that. But another position I'm looking at that Auburn should be looking at as well is the wide receiver. And of course, this kind of goes against what we said earlier, the talent of the wide receiver room that Auburn has really built in. But you're going to need depth. Hugh Freeze mentioned several times he wants to run tempo. He wants a fast-paced offense up and down the field. He wants to wear out that defense every given chance he has. And the one way to do that is to sling the rock, and you need plenty of wide receivers to do that. And, of course, we already said you got the two other guys coming in and out of the Freeze five. You got Perry Thompson and Malcolm Simmons, who are going to be awesome for the Auburn Tigers. I feel like Malcolm Simmons is one of the most underrated players in this recruiting class. I feel like very underrated by 24/7. But look at the wide receiver room that has been depleted. You lost Javarius Johnson. You lost Amari Kelly, Malcolm Johnson Jr., and of course, known 10 yards per catch legend Jair Shorter. All left through the portal. All but one of those guys have found a place. Javarius Johnson, surprisingly, the only one that's not found a home yet. And I don't see a world where they come back, where Javarius comes back. I don't really see a world where any of the guys who've not found a home yet come back. I will say this is new to me. Apparently, Kyle Vaccarella, the long snapper, entered the portal. That just came up on my feed. So be great. But you did bring in Robert Lewis from Georgia State and Sam Jackson V. I think you just need like one more. I think you need like maybe a slot guy to go alongside Jay Fair. Just get an inside guy because Robert Lewis, you kind of played with him at 8A, and you kind of realize he's probably more of an outside guy. So you gotta need some more inside guys, a little more quick guys. That's what you're kind of looking for in and I'm trying to remember his name off the top of my head. Larondre Lambert Smith. I might be getting his first name completely wrong. From Penn State, and I'm going to look him up while I'm talking about him. But he's exactly what you want out of a Keandre. There we go, Keandre Lambert Smith out of Penn State. 6'1", 188. Last year, 53 catches, 673 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He's a fast as mess wide receiver who, if Auburn were to pick him up, he's already scheduled. I think he's already has a visit or been contacted by Auburn. It'd be a huge pickup. The wide receiver room would go from great to even better in that level of play. And what you're looking at as a whole, you're looking at a wide receiver room that can do some damage in the SEC because holy crap, the level of play that this team can get to with this wide receiver room, just the Freeze five, getting in guys with experience who can help develop those guys. It is so nice. It's such a breath of fresh air to go into a season and not be worried about the strength of the wide receiver room.
Certainly is a refreshing era on the Plains, if you will, to be excited about the talent that you've got coming in, the talent that you've got returning, and also to your point, Dylan, the possibilities of bringing in some other guys that can really, really be instrumental and influential for that matter with their experience. There's another program on the Plains we're going to talk about on the other side of our ad break that is also celebrating the return of someone who's going to be very impactful to their 24-25 campaign. We'll get there in just one moment on the other side of this ad break. But before we talk about Janai Boem's return to Auburn men's basketball, I want to remind everybody, if you're hanging out right here on the College Loop YouTube channel, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Drop a comment on this video. Tell us your feedback, where you think Auburn football needs to be shopping in the portal, who you expect to go in, who you expect to come back out. If anyone is on your radar, on your hot board, on your message board, on your vision board for Auburn football, we want to hear about it, and we want to hear about all your other thoughts for everything we're about to talk about here on the other side of this ad break. I don't know why I call it an ad break. It's just a self-promo, but, I digress. If you're hanging out with us on a streaming service, thank you guys so much for your continual love and support. Make sure you give us 5 stars, thumbs up, whatever the highest rating is on your streaming platform of choice. Share the show with a friend so we can continue to grow this family. If you want to support the show in ways to go beyond like, subscribe, and ringing the bell, which you should totally do, just as another reminder, make sure you head over to thewarreport.com and pick up your very own College Loop Podcast, War Report Podcast Network, co-branded Feeling Loopy t-shirt. Comes in 5 different colorways. Most comfortable shirt you will ever own. Once you pick up your very own copy, make sure that you go on your social media platform that you prefer the most and use hashtag Feeling Loopy. That's Feeling without the G, folks. No G in Feeling. And tag us, and it will throw up that photo, that selfie of you, your dog, I don't know, your shrine to Auburn, whatever you've got it hanging on. We will make sure that we throw it up on the next stream and support you guys for supporting us. So thank you guys for everything. Your continual love and support is not lost on us. I know I say that all the time and I sound like a broken record, but I genuinely mean it. You guys are the best in the world. Let's jump back into Auburn ball. Let's talk Auburn men's basketball. Ladies and gentlemen, minutes before we started recording the show, which has been kind of a while now because we kind of did have to press pause for a second there, Dylan, but minutes before we hit record on this show, we found out the unequivocally best news on the Auburn sports front certainly on April 17th, year of our Lord 2024. Janai Boem is returning to the Auburn Tigers for his final year of eligibility, year 3 with Janai, coming back to run it back. And the video was great. It was Aubie knocking over a bunch of plastic trophies. Thankfully, we don't trust him with the real ones because he's just a little too charismatic sometimes, a little too erotic.
You trained the tiger enough. You can't.
Erroneous. That's not the word I meant at all. Holy shit. I used the wrong word there. Ignore that. I did not mean that word at all. He's a little too careless with anyways, Dylan, go on. We're gonna pretend like I didn't say that.
Did you say what I think you said?
I did. I absolutely did on accident. I tried to do error.
So Janai Boem is back.
They're gonna love that in the comments.
Yeah, Janai Boem, after a year of averaging 16.5 points a game, 8.5 rebounds, 2.2 assists, he is back after someone wrongfully assuming he was going to enter the portal, and then a bunch of people wondering if he was going to either go to the draft or come back to Auburn. Great, awesome, immaculate news for Janai Boem's return. He now joins Chadwick and Mazzara and, of course, Dylan Cardwell as announcing that they are returning. Of course, there's only one guy left who has a chance to announce that.
Yeah, Chris Moore. Yep.
Who, news to us, has eligibility remaining. COVID years are weird.
Yeah, I don't get it at all. But, hey, Chris would be another great ad. I mean, I don't even know that we really need to harp too much on the return of Janai Boem because you really don't need to be a super fan of Auburn basketball to have seen his impact on the court. He's an All-American for a reason, All-Conference for a reason. And this young man is going to come back, build some real draft stock. Hopefully people actually pay attention this year because clearly it wasn't where a lot of us think that Janai Boem can be. He's going to make an NBA team very, very happy. Just thankfully it's going to be in 2025. And he comes back in and really elevates this. And you think about the potential of Chris Moore coming back. And now you've really got some veteran mentorship and some guys that really know how to play ball. I understand that those are two very different skill levels, but what Chris Moore did coming down the stretch specifically this season is invaluable. And Dylan, I'm pumped, man. Like I think this team just got a hell of a lot better again.
Yeah, the tweet that I think really embodies this, I saw someone tweet out the heart and soul of the team is back, meaning the heart and souls of the team, plural. With Dylan Cardwell and, of course, Janai Boem, two guys who keep the game in their own hands. Both of them very capable of doing a takeover. We saw Dylan Cardwell against USC. We saw Janai Boem throughout the tournament. It was just awesome to watch happen. And with that, you're getting a experienced tall guard and JP Pegues to go alongside him. You're getting Chadwick Mazzara, who, maybe get him calmed down a little bit. He won't have Katie Johnson to rile him up a little bit more anymore. Just news headlines to throw out there. Katie Johnson will be announcing where he is transferring to on Saturday. So we'll be talking about that on the Sunday live stream. But with Janai Boem, you have a guy who has an extra chip on his shoulder and a guy who has been at the top level of the sport over the past 2 years, and giving him something to really play for. He said it in the video. His trophy case doesn't look like Aubie's does. Not very many people's trophy case look like Aubie's does. But a guy who kind of got snubbed at SEC Defensive Player of the Year, I definite snub. A guy who didn't get recognition from the All-Americans. He got third team, even though he played up. I think he even got second team SEC, which was crazy to me. You're watching a guy who. I don't think Auburn has had a player come back with this much of a chip on his shoulder like we were experiencing with Janai Boem. At least one that I can't think of on top of my head. Because once the other guys all experienced like their high levels, they were out. Like Jared Harper, Bryce Brown were gone, but Bryce Brown was out of eligibility. Chuma gone, Isaac Coro gone, Reef gone, and then you come into the present day. Janai Boem, he's back. And of course, a lot of things can play into that. NIL probably pays a little bit better than what a G League contract would for Janai Boem.
Sure.
So huge pickup. But this is probably the best news of the spring outside of the whole Cam Coleman is actually him, and we should all be excited for that. So a nice little.
I argue it's the biggest news, and that you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
Like the proof's already in the pudding, and very, very excited. I think that I'm going to leave it at this here, Dylan, but this really pivots kind of what we discussed not even a week and a half ago. I will touch on what our next point here in just a second, our last little basketball point, which is going to get some people riled up, which is always fun. But now you don't really have to go after a big in the portal. You can try to work through the freshman pipeline and make that a point of emphasis going into the 2025 class. That can be done. You can work the portal next year if need be. You've got that kind of leadway, and now you're back to you got a lot of guys you can spread minutes across, and especially if you bring back a Chris Moore and then you go add one more piece. I think it's a forward. One more piece to this rotation. Man, I think that this is great shape. I think Auburn got a whole lot better. Obviously, I think you upgraded in the backcourt. I mean that. I think you did, and you're keeping your front court and guys that know how to pick each other up. So very, very excited to see how they mesh. Some other Auburn basketball news. Aiden Holloway, if you're listening to the show the day of its release, Aiden Holloway is at the University of Alabama. And he is on an official visit or unofficial. I don't know what it's titled anymore. Everything's official and unofficial at the same time nowadays. There used to be clear set in stone rules. I worked at the Division III level, and we have pretty clear rules about what official and unofficial looks like. But at the D1 level, you just never know anymore. He will be visiting the University of Alabama today, which I think is probably going to rile feathers when I say this. It's already going to rile feathers that he's there. It makes a lot of sense. Moving within the conference, moving over to a program that's losing its best player in Mark Sears.
He's retaining his college eligibility.
Yeah, he's going to the draft. Anyways, more than likely losing Mark Sears, and has a lot of room for some backcourt shakeup and some minutes coming available in that backcourt. Also, Alabama's done a good job of developing guards. As of late, it's just a harsh reality for some people to cope with, and I get it. But I will understand everyone flaming and turning on him. I get it. That's part of the rivalry. Wishing Reef, I almost said Reef. Hello, wishing Aid the absolute best. Their games remind me so much of each other, except for Reef is a way better shooter. I digress. Wishing him the best in this process. Interested to see where he lands. I don't know that it's Alabama, but I don't know that it's not. So go ahead and buckle up for that one. Let's pivot to the other side of the hardwood and talk about how the WNBA absolutely snubbed, honestly, Scott Grayson, Dylan.
It is an absolute travesty that a first-team All-SEC player did not get drafted. It is so dumb. Was second in the league in scoring. Basically, I don't want to say carried, but offensively, she was the heart and soul of that Auburn team that made March Madness for the first time in 2016, I think, 2019, I think the last time, one of those 2 years. Average 17 points a game, 4.2 rebounds, 2.3 assists. Again, the heart and soul of the team last year. When she was in, Auburn was going to put up points and hang in there till the final minute. I do not know how in the world she did not get drafted, but the Washington Mystics did step up and like, all right, we'll let you in the training camp. And I think that's probably the best decision for them to do because they're going to find a guard in Ona Grayson who is going to light that training camp up and is going to get a contract. And if she doesn't, I don't know. I don't know if they're spoken because she is a WNBA player.
Agreed. I mean, you said it best, Dylan. I really don't have much to add other than the fact that she's been there and done this before in terms of having to work her way through it. No one's going to outwork honestly Scott Grayson. And if you're going to give her the opportunity to work after not hearing her name called in the WNBA draft, folks, the Washington Mystics might have won this. Like, I'm serious. You give her a reason to be pissed off and work harder than everybody else after she already does. I'm really, really excited to see where this pans out. And whether it's the WNBA or abroad, she's going to turn heads, and she's going to wind up at the professional level. I mean that. She's going to go down as one of the greats. She is going down as one of the greats in Auburn women's basketball history, and I'm very, very excited to see where her professional career leads her. Let's go over to the Diamond. Actually have some positive news on the baseball front. I know. I'm shocked too. So in the most authentic Auburn versus Georgia Tech way possible, Auburn jumped out yesterday to an 8-0 lead in the first inning and proceeded to let the Jackets crawl back in the game, getting as close as 8-7 in the fourth, and then kind of putting the foot back on the throttle for the Tigers in the sixth and seventh, putting up 3-1, finally winning this game 12-8, like I mentioned before. I mean, your offense bailed you out, but I mean, Jogo's got to get better. He pitched in the midweek against a quality opponent in Georgia Tech, a team that's underachieved, in my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of other folks. Not dissimilar to that of Auburn, really, Dylan. These two teams are not terribly different. But what really helped Auburn out here is getting to their bullpen, and I said that out loud. Getting to the bullpen after Jogo gets up 5, one of those being a salami. Just want to remind everybody that was deflating in and of itself. But of the 5 young men that came out of the bullpen in relief, I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Only 3 allowed runs, earned runs, all 3 earned. Drew Nelson pitched out of his mind. Cameron Kesher came in and shut things down, and Parker Carlson did his job. 3 scoreless frames. You really can't ask for much more. And then Hayden Murphy, who wound up getting the decision on this game, might I add, only giving up 1 run after coming in a mess. Christian Herberholz gets lit up a little bit after coming in a mess. And this group kind of rallied. The offense took care of itself, just like we knew they would. And Cooper Weiss, 2 for 4. Cooper McMurray, 3 for 4. Chris Stanfield, 2 for 5. This group recorded 14 hits against a program that I mentioned underachieving, but I think is a hell of a lot more talented than the record shows. They got some momentum to ride into going into this weekend, but it gets tough, Dylan. It gets very, very tough as you head to Starkville, Mississippi to take on the Mississippi State Bulldogs Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 6 p.m., 5 p.m., 1 p.m. Sunday rubber match in theory. So let's take a look at the Mississippi State Bulldogs for a second here and buckle up. It's not fun. Team average 282. They've got a number of guys at the top of their order, their top 3, and Dakota Jordan, David Mershon, and Connor Hushak, all hitting north of 300. And they're not afraid to hit the long ball. 41 on the season, if I'm reading my notes correctly, Dylan. They get on base a lot, and it doesn't much get prettier. It doesn't get much prettier. I said that out of order there. I swear I can speak English. On the other side of the field, this group's pitching is damn near lights out. They've been better than we expected them to be. They're not the program of old, but they are still a solid contender in the SEC. And it starts with their ace in Call Steven, who's pitching to a 2.84 through 50.2 innings of work. And right behind him, I'm just going to go with JC. I've not been able to pronounce Durangelo's last name for the life of me throughout the entire season, and I've heard it called on the broadcast. But he's pitching to a 3.80 through 47.1 innings of work. I saw Dylan lean in, see if he could take a stab at it.
Yeah, I'm not trying that.
Yeah, there's only one vowel in the entire word, which I'm not hating. Someone please correct me, but I'll stretch of the imagination. Going beyond there, you've only got one bullpen arm with 20-plus innings of work that is pitching above a 4.6, and that's down toward the bottom at Evan Sierra, who's pitching to a 7.97, not seeing a ton of work, coming into mostly mop-up roles. You've got a lot of arms at Mississippi State's bullpen that if you don't make them get deep into it routinely and get these guys more work than they're planning on having, it's going to be a long weekend for you. And Auburn's not had a lot of success. So you got to turn to your offense, and you've got to turn to your Cooper McMurrays and your Stanfields and the whole 9. Because if you don't get hot and get hot early, this one's going to be a long weekend. That being said, if Auburn could go in and steal 1 out of 3 in Starkville, you feel better about where you're at. The season's kind of a wash in the first place, but the schedule gets like a little bit better, sort of. I don't know. I'm trying to manifest here, but LSU and Ole Miss is a tough draw. It's a tough conference, and you're going to need to make some noise in Hoover at this point. If you can go in and grab 2 out of 3, I think that you can probably ride some momentum for a while. You get FAMU in the middle of the week next week before heading to Baton Rouge, who is not the LSU of old, but still a very, very, very competitive program. And then you get Ole Miss at home, but you've got to start capitalizing on opportunities, especially when you jump ahead. Auburn tried to do that tried to squander an 8-0 lead just a night ago when we're recording this, Dylan. 2 nights ago as the show's coming out. I'm just telling you guys the facts. If you guys really want some good baseball breakdown in terms of where this team's ceiling really could be, head over to the Uptempo podcast. And I'm not just copping out here, Dylan. I'm just saying they do a great job of baseball coverage over at Uptempo. And those guys understand the inner workings of this program better than I honestly care to. I see what I watch and see what I read. I don't know, Dylan. I don't think that the trajectory is much higher, but I don't hate Auburn's chances after competing with a good Georgia Tech team in the midweek and getting a lot of arms in there for some real confidence boosters. Now, is that enough for this weekend? I don't know, but I like the trajectory this team's headed in. Where are we at with softball? Unless you want to add on that.
I would say I do like Auburn's chances in this game a lot, in the series a lot. Especially out of like the rest of the SEC series, I don't really know that much about Missouri yet. I usually just kind of wait until the week of to really pregame those. But Auburn traveling to Starkville, finally having a Friday through Sunday series. We're not going to sound stupid talking about it because the last couple ones have been Thursday through Saturday, or at least there 2 of them have out of the last 3. But you got to look at your arms. We don't know who's starting a pitcher yet. You can assume Joe Guy won't be in the rotation since he pitched in the midweek. But, honestly, I would not be opposed to see some Drew Nelson this weekend. He pitched very good against Georgia Tech. I think it's time to see what he can do. He was very highly touted as a recruit. And, I mean, it's hard for the bullpen to get much worse than it has been. So try out some arms. The season's already a wash. Let it be a wash. Test your arms. Try to see if you can keep any of the guys because, of course, you're going to let a highly touted guy not play. You got to be a little mindful of other schools that might let him play. That's just like the transfer portal talking. But yeah, I like Auburn's chances this weekend. I think it's probably one of the more like
winnable series
is left. Yeah. But yeah, softball.
I watched Arkansas, Texas Tech last night. Good God Almighty. Those Razorbacks are different.
Yeah. Luckily, Auburn only lost by a combined total of 1, 2, 3, 4 runs to Arkansas. But stop me if you heard this before, but yet another Auburn softball midweek has been canceled. I don't know what the grand total is now, but I'm sure it's in the double digits. It is crazy how much that happens. But Auburn does play Kentucky this weekend, Saturday through Monday. There you go. There's a weird series for you.
Love it.
And on a Monday, Saturday is going to be Shelby Lowe Day. So highlighting Auburn's one of Auburn's great senior pitchers. Of course, 2 weeks from now, they'll be celebrating Maddie Penta Day on the last game of the regular season. Looking at Kentucky. Kentucky is number 24 overall in the country, currently boasting a 26-15 record with a 5-10 record in the SEC. Currently 4-7 away, and of course, it'll be a beautiful J.B. Moore Field. Right now, they have a couple of batters who are batting over 300, but the main ones, it's got a 385, you got a 345, you got 291, 278, 259. Those are like the main girls that are playing. Currently hit 57 home runs by the Wildcats. Pitching wise, pretty good. Their best pitcher is Stephanie Schoonover. In 26 games, has an ERA of 2.46. You're going to see a lot of Maddie Penta this week. Hopefully, you can see a lot of Shelby Lowe as well. Shelby Lowe was a huge part of why Auburn won that last series against LSU, and really showing Auburn is in the right trajectory. I would have loved to have a midweek just to keep the ball moving, but Auburn softball 2024 is going to be known as the season of cancellations. Yeah, because so many of those have happened this year, and jury's out on how much that actually affected the team. But they seem to be finally catching a stride. I like Auburn's chances against Kentucky. I think they're finally finding a stride to go in the right direction. I feel like they're finally finding the ball on the seam. I think they do a little better job of it, but I think they're finally seeing the ball when they need to see it. And I think, of course, that this pitching rotation is playing like one of the best in the country. You got Shelby Lowe and Maddie Penta going back and forth as just top two. And then, of course,
it's really never been about the pitching. It's just been about the offense.
It's about knocking the ball over into the outfield. But Auburn has a very manageable series, especially because you're back at home after you travel to Baton Rouge, took down number 6 team in the country. And, of course, you got after this weekend, you got Ole Miss and Oxford, and then you bring back to Janai Boem Field for Alabama. And then, of course, right after that series ends, you're going to stay right at home for the SEC tournament, which is in, again, beautiful Janai Boem Field. And I would absolutely adore it if Auburn was not one of the first teams out of the SEC tournament. That'd be awesome. So I would love for Auburn to start getting a little run here. I did hear someone say that Auburn is like on the verge of like hosting a regional this year, which I thought was absolutely wild to hear. But I wouldn't be mad.
I don't necessarily believe that.
I won't complain.
I just don't necessarily believe it. That's all.
But yeah, I like Auburn's chances in this series, especially because you're getting the hot hands at the right time.
Yeah, if they can heat up and actually kind of build some momentum coming into the obviously home-hosted SEC tournament, postseason is a different animal. A lot of teams defy logic, and that happens at every level. So you never know. You just got to get there first. That's the key. Wishing them the best of luck as they take on Kentucky and try and travel to Lexington this weekend and Monday because, yeah, sure, why not? Dylan, before we get out of here.
They're in JB this week.
I'm sorry. My apologies.
There you go.
Host at home. My bad. I'm getting all types of – I was getting them mixed up with baseball. And, guys, spring's wild. Spring is wild. But before we get out of here, I want to talk about a team that's been absolutely dominant this spring, and that's Auburn men's golf. And this is not just, me being, the golf enthusiast that I am, coming fresh off the Masters. This group has been a ton of fun to follow this year. Obviously, you've got Jackson Koyven, who I recently found out goes by JK, which is funny because he's not kidding around. Anyways, you've got Jackson Koyven, who has been, you may as well name the SEC male golfer, freshman golfer of the week after him at this point. He just racks it up week in, week out. And he's a top 10 golfer in the country for a reason. But you've got the co-SEC golfers of the week, both on the same squad, and neither of them are Jackson Koyven, following the Mossy Oak Collegiate. Is it Mossy Oak Collegiate Classic? Yeah, Mossy Oak
it's just collegiate.
In West Point, Mossy Oak Golf Course. And those are J.M. Butler and Brendan Valdez. Both of these gentlemen shot 12 under over the course of their 3 rounds over this past weekend. Good for first, but this is unbelievable. If you look through the top 5 individuals in this tournament, and then I'll give you guys a sneak peek if you haven't looked yet. That way you guys can start piecing together how many strokes Auburn won this tournament by, or take educated guesses. J.M. Butler and Brendan Valdez tied for first overall in the entire tournament. And mind you, this is not a cupcake field. Number 5, Ole Miss was right there. So I don't want anybody to think this. But then you have Jackson Koyven, who sole possession of 3rd place. So there you go. There's your top 3 golfers in the tournament. Carson Baca, sole possession of 4th place. Josiah Gilbert, sole possession of 5th place. And Reed Lauder, sole possession of, tied 7th place. So my apologies on that one. But you've got 6 guys finishing in the top 10 individually in a tournament. Auburn finished the weekend 46 under. 46 under par. Their next closest competition, number 5 team in the country, the Ole Miss Rebels, who finished 12 under par. Folks, Auburn won by 34 strokes. For a very talented golfer, that is 9 holes of golf. And shooting under par in the process. Guys, a lot of you listening would take 34 to get through 2 holes. This is mind-boggling. And then when you look up, and when you look back at the weekend that these gentlemen had, and I just want to spotlight J.M. Butler and Brendan Valdez because they were eerily similar to the point where they actually had the same score day to day. Both of these gentlemen, 68, 69, 67 over the course of 3 days. And when you think that's impressive, you've got to remember every single one of these guys and of the 6 that made the top 10 shot at least 1 round of 69 or better. Jackson Koyvin had a 69, a 66, and then shot a 71. Oh, it's a 71. It's still a 1 under par. Still 1 under par. Carson Baca, 69, 66, 72. Oh, it's a 72. That is par. Josiah Gilbert, 71, 66. What the actual hell? 72. Reed Lauder, 70, 72, 69. This is bonkers. There's a reason this team jumped from 2 to 1 back to the number 1 ranking in the country. They're going to wipe the floor with everyone else in the SEC when we head to St. Simon's next week. Jury's still out on whether or not the Tar Man's in attendance. I'd like to go. I'd like to be there. This is flat out dominance, and I'm done there, Dylan. But when I was looking back, and I read a lot about golf and read a lot about collegiate golf. I'm sitting here just trying to process. This is amazing. With your third best contributor this past weekend being a true freshman, and having a ton of guys. I mean, JM just reached 500 career birdies in college golf. For the record, I don't have anything that resembles 500 career birdies, and I've never played in a real competition. Just for context, it's just spectacular work, and I thought it was worth spotlighting. So thank you for giving me a platform to do that, Dylan, because good Lord, that's nuts.
It's ridiculous.
And
it is absolutely ridiculous.
Really, I'm genuinely really excited to see how this shakes out at the SEC tournament next week, or SEC championships rather. They should call it the SEC Classic. That'd be sick. I'm just throwing that out there. Just throwing out the idea. Golf course is sick. If anybody has any plugs at where they're playing on St. Simon's, like ends on the property, please let me know. I'm kindly asking. It's really hard to get on the property if you're not staying there, and quite frankly, I can't afford to stay there. It's like Ritz level money, so good on you if you're going. Let me know. That's going to do it for the show. Congratulations to our Auburn men's golf team, and congratulations to all of our spring athletes who are busting their tails every single day, getting closer and closer to graduation right around the corner. They still got to get it done in the classroom. Nothing short of impressive. That's going to wrap up the show here. So if you guys are listening on the College Loop YouTube channel, make sure, as I always mention, I'm going to battle a hiccup real quick. Hang on, guys. Bear with me. Oh, my goodness. Here we are. If you're hanging out on the YouTube channel, make sure you like, subscribe, ring the bell, like this video, drop a comment. Give us your feedback. Tell us what you guys want to hear about on the Sunday live stream, 6 p.m. Central Time on every Sunday. Always do it. Give us your feedback about what you guys want to hear there, who you guys want to see. If you guys want us to bring in a side character, an NPC, if you will, we'll be happy to do that. But give us your feedback in the comments. Can't tell you how much we appreciate that one, how good that is for the analytics. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and ring the bell so you can stay up to date with everything going on here at the College Loop. If you're listening on a streaming platform, make sure you hit make sure you give us thumbs up, 5 stars, whatever the highest rating is on your streaming platform of choice. Share the show with a friend so we can continue to grow this College Loop family. And if you guys want to support the show in ways that go beyond just like, subscribe, and ring the bell, head over to thewarreport.com. Pick up your very own College Loop podcast, War Report Podcast Network. Co-branded Feel Loopy t-shirt. Comes in 5 different colorways. $25. Use hashtag Feeling Loopy, feeling without the G on your favorite social media platform. Tag us in it. We'll throw it up in the next show, next stream. Thank you guys for your continual love and support. I'm Harrison Tarr at by Harrison Tarr on the Bird app, at by Harrison Tarr on Instagram, and at that's numeral 1, _golf on Instagram. Come check us out. Come hang out. Come play. Send us your rounds. Send us your wacky golf footage. We want to spotlight you guys. Thank you guys for your continual love and support. I will let us get out of here. Dylan, let's rock and roll. Love you, brother. Let's get out of here.
All right.
Love you, brother.
What's up, brother?
Check Tuesday. Check Tuesday.
I'm Dylan Larck, @watching on Twitter, also on Instagram as well at Dylan Larck, DYLNLARCK. And of course, you have me right here on the College Loop podcast, where you should like, comment, and subscribe. Leave your thoughts on who do you think Auburn should be targeting in the portal. We didn't give any names for targets, but we are always open to hear who you think Auburn should be targeting in the portal. What are your thoughts? What is your way too early ceiling and floor for Auburn men's basketball ahead of the season with Janai Boem and Dylan Cardwell and Chad Baker-Mazara coming back and JP Pegues, of course, transferring in? And what are your nasty words to the WNBA for not drafting, honestly, Scott Grayson? Don't be too mean. That was probably the most WNBA draft was more fun to watch than the NBA draft. I cannot lie. That
was electric.
It was awesome, especially because like the first 7-8 picks are all going to be like legendary in the WNBA, and Caitlin Clark is going to tear it up in year one as a rookie. And of course, you have us on the audio version of the show as well. If you're tired of seeing our faces, you have us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and of course, Amazon Music. And of course, social medias. You can follow us there too on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, the works. All of those at the College Loop. And of course, all of that being said, Thanks for tuning in, War Eagle, and this has been the College Loop Podcast.
Love you guys.